The pivot that we made early on in the business is that we went from trying to sell directly to businesses to selling via partners like hosting companies. So in terms of sort of total retail value, we probably have $30-40 million worth of websites being purchased from us.
Let's talk about the AI, what it opens for site builders and solutions like yours.
We've obviously done a lot of research on this, and honestly, we've been a little underwhelmed at the moment with what's out there. You know, in all honesty, when you look at that in the context of a real customer, it just wouldn't work. The hosting industry has gone through consolidation, which makes it trickier to find partners that don't already have a solution somewhere in the group.
My guest is Simon Best, founder and CEO of Basekit, a company that offers white label digital products such as website builders, e-commerce, and booking software. Their key go-to-market strategy involves partnerships with leading telcos and web hosting businesses worldwide, including Mist Group, Aruba, and FastHosts. In this episode, Simon shares his company's story, his approach to business, and explains the future opportunities for software and hosting providers. Hey Simon, nice to have you here. So let's start with the basics. Tell us about your career.
Okay, yeah, first of all, massive thanks for having me on. So where do I start with my career? So I have always been a techie. I guess that's my roots. So I did an electronic engineering degree in the University of Bristol. And then that took me into a consumer electronics company. Actually, it was the first job that I had. And soon realized that actually the kind of digital, the software side of things was definitely more my forte, what I enjoyed doing. And so I saw an opportunity to start some business ideas with my brother at the time. Took my first steps learning how to code for the web. So those first few businesses were initially about just creating websites for local businesses, helping my brother with some websites as well. He was a financial advisor. So back then it was all about trying to generate leads for financial advice. So it was real kind of baptism of fire into web and to how it all worked. Really that was the genesis for the idea for Basekit. We were creating websites, creating web apps for local businesses, and we wanted to be able to do more, to do it quicker, to earn more money, to have more clients. And so, we decided to create some software internally that would help us do just that. And then, realized that could be something that would be a product in itself and that we could go and sell. And here we are 15 years later.
I've just seen that it's been really 15 years. I don't really remember if 15 years site builders were a thing like nowadays. So how did it all start? Was it already your idea that it should be some sort of a simple way to create a site? Or what was the initial idea of the product?
So interestingly, the initial idea was more around kind of functionality, so web apps. Which is having a resurgence today. There's the whole no-code movement today, and there's some really big apps out there now that are helping people to create like functional things with UI. But in the early days, sadly, we didn't get any traction with that. I think we were kind of too early to the scene. Sometimes that can happen. And so we realized pretty quickly that we needed to focus on just the website part, just the more visual part. Which is really what everybody needs, right? Every business needs that piece, even if they need the functional piece as well. They need the website to talk about their business and to attract new customers, etc. So we really simplified the product and boiled it down to work in that way. And you say back then in sort of 2008, there weren't a lot of site builders around. It was WordPress was just about there. But WordPress was super difficult to use. It wasn't user friendly. Still, arguably, isn't very. But I'm sure we'll get back to that. But there was nothing really very kind of drag and drop, and it was the early days of those sorts of things.
Okay, so you started with web apps. What exactly was that about?
So the ability to ultimately get some data and make it appear on the website. So we had some early demos when we were going out and sort of demoing the product and trying to get investment in the early days, where we would pull in data from like real estate data from an API, and then we would display it on a Google map, and then we'd put all the pins on the map, and then you could click the pin and it would bring up the property that was for sale, and you could scroll around the map, and then it would re-query the data for the area that you landed on the map. It was a pretty neat demo. So yeah, it was all about those sort of dynamic things, which again, back in the day were fairly new. The whole dynamic web and Ajax was all really super new back then.
Right. And then you pivoted into building websites. Makes sense. How many people were involved in the project initially?
So just 3 initially. Yeah, it was me, my brother, and another co-founder, Richard. And yeah, it just sort of spun out of our own internal uses. It was me and Richard were the software engineers on it. And then my brother was more of the business head. So he was, going out and trying to sell it, trying to get some interest in it from an investment perspective. And yeah, we made a pretty good team back then.
Did you get that investment eventually?
So we did. We entered a competition called Seed Camp, which is, I think, the similarity to that is like Y Combinator, which is pretty famous in the States, which is like a startup accelerator. So they invest a small amount of money in a company, and then they also introduce you to investors and sort of get you on the tech scene. And so we won the Seed Camp in 2008. We were one of like 3 or 4 winners out of thousands of applications. And yeah, as part of that, we got to travel to like San Francisco and meet a bunch of tech startups, meet a bunch of investors in Europe and in the States. And that really helped us to get, the doors open to investors and take on that first money.
Right. So what was the form of this investment? Was it like a seed fund initially and then a few rounds, or how did you manage to set it up?
Yeah, it was exactly that. So with Seed Camp, they give you, I think it was 50,000 euros, and that was just to sort of be part of their network and for them to then help you to go and be introduced to real institutional investors. Then our first seed round, I think, was something around £600,000 or £700,000, which was, to really take what was, pretty much a demo at the time, a working demo, and really commercialize it. We were able to hire a small team of people, really push the product to the point that then it could be sold. And then we've had another couple of funding rounds since then to grow.
Okay, so what's now the ownership of the company?
It's sort of roughly 25% is owned now by sort of management team, and founders and employees. And then, the majority of the company is owned by those investors. I think that's just a symptom of having multiple rounds, and that tends to be how it goes. Obviously, we're then trying to increase the value of that for all involved now. To hopefully at some point we'll find a strategic acquirer, someone that we can work with to take our tech into a different place.
Okay, so how is it to manage a company that has 25%? Is it complicated in such a structure?
Do you mean in terms of the sort of decision-making process on the board?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Our investors have been really supportive in that they let us run the business, and they are there on the board to provide advice and support and network when we need it as a business. So they have never been very, dictatorial and telling us what to do and, sort of ordering us around. It's been quite the opposite. They've really invested in the team, the people, and they've trusted us to go and run the business and grow the business and given us the support that we need to do that. So it's been a really good relationship.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like you were pretty lucky in this regard. I've heard different stories, but in this case, having just support, and again, it's been 15 years, so many things could have happened, and you say it's just all positive and in the right direction. So congratulations on that. But looking back, like looking business-wise, do you think you could have done better in terms of, maybe financing, but also some business decisions?
Yeah, I think we would love to be bigger than we are now. We're still a relatively small company in terms of revenue.
Okay.
I mean, we're sort of in roughly sort of $5 million territory in terms of revenue. So it's not a huge business. But yeah, the pivot that we made early on in the business is that we went from trying to sell directly to businesses to selling via partners like hosting companies and telcos and organizations like that would take our product and then white label it and sell it onto their customers. That was an early decision that we made. So in terms of sort of total retail value, the dollars that are spent by customers on Basekit websites, it's probably 5 to 10 times that number. So we probably have, $30-40 million worth of websites being purchased from us. But due to the nature of our business model, we only see 20% of that or whatever it is.
So you generate a lot of value, but cannot put all your hands on it.
Yes, but then, we don't have the marketing spend. So, the reason we made that pivot earlier on is that there were some big players in the market like Wix who had, closed, $100 million or $200 million or whatever it was that they closed in terms of funding at the time. So they had way deeper pockets than us. We had closed a couple of million, which was great to build the product, but it wasn't nearly enough to distribute on the same scale that they were. So, we took that decision. And of course, we would love to be bigger, but we're still got a great team, got a great culture, and we're still growing.
So tell us about the numbers of Basekit now in terms of how many clients, what's the revenue?
So there are a few 100,000 actively paying customers across our partners. We've got a bunch of different business models that we have with different partners. So some have a freemium model where they give away free websites. In the course of Basekit's history, we've had over 10 million people come and create websites in a freemium way or pay for them, and over the course of our history. So, really quite a big reach. We don't call ourselves a site builder anymore. So we've now got multiple products. We've got our site builder as our core product. But we now have our e-commerce platform for selling physical products. We've got our bookings platform for selling time-based products like events and classes and appointments. And then we've got our CRM as well, which is our brand new product. So not just a site builder, lots of reach, lots of different types of customers that we work with.
And your partners and customers are mostly US and Europe based? Yeah,
mostly Europe, about 60%-ish in Europe. Not a great deal in the US, not a great deal in the UK, actually. Simply because there are lots of other competing products in those markets.
But do you mean competing products like the big players, or do you mean in terms of the similar business models through the hosting providers?
Yeah, more the big players. So those markets are, saturated with the big guys that we all know and see on the TV adverts. So it's a bit trickier to compete with those. So we tend to find it harder to find partners. And then even if we do find partners, for them to be particularly successful against those other competitors. So we're actually seeing really good traction at the moment in further away markets like Africa and Asia, where there aren't those big players doing so well. So a product like Basekit, which a partner can pick up and white label and put into their market, and it can be localized and supported in their local language, is really quite a unique thing.
So you mean that you have some nice traction there because these big players don't localize, or does it mean that you just need some different business model?
It's a bit of both, yeah. I think the big players tend to focus on their home markets, or the kind of, for want of a better phrase, sort of bigger, easier markets in terms of being able to localize and get a team on the ground there. Whereas we're finding, that the sort of further away markets like Africa and Asia, there aren't so many competing products like that. It is harder to do business in some of those places for a number of reasons. But we're finding that our white label product is perfect because partners can pick it up and they can sell it and white label it, with their own support from their own offices and their own premises. We don't need to be necessarily on the ground there selling it and supporting it. We can help our partners to do that remotely.
So maybe about this market model through partnerships. So how has your sales and marketing strategy changed over the years? Because I hear from many developers, we work with many companies who want to distribute through the hosting companies. And it seems that sometimes it's even unprofitable. It's hard. So how has that changed in your case?
So particularly through hosting companies, it's become more challenging. Yeah, there are less opportunities. We all know that the hosting industry has gone through consolidation over the last quite a number of years now. We're almost at this kind of second or third wave of that consolidation now, which makes it trickier to find partners that don't already have a solution somewhere in the group. So that's made it more challenging in the hosting market. We're still super active in the industry. We still have some of the biggest players in the industry that we work with. But yeah, just finding it increasingly difficult to find those new big partners, which is why our sales strategy over the years has changed to look at other industries as well. So we've got a number of telco partners on board now all over the world, who are really good at selling the product. And we've got some real success with. We're also now looking, as we go forward, to support SaaS businesses. So this is less about selling websites as a sort of isolated entity to end customers. It's more about taking our product and using our API to integrate into another SaaS product to enhance that product with websites or e-commerce.
But can you give me an example of such an integration? Because I'm not sure if I'm connecting all the dots.
So a couple of examples would be, we're working at the moment with an AI company, and they do a bunch of generative AI for a small business. So they generate a logo, they generate some images that are relevant to the business, and a strap line and a bunch of content like that. So what they can do is they can plug in via our API an instant website. So what they do is they use our API to provision the website. They create a couple of pages. They throw in the images that they've already generated and the logo and the color scheme and everything else. And within, a second, they've got an automatically generated website, which they can give to that customer. So that's less about sort of selling the website as a real headline. It's just one of the things that they sell based on that AI data that they're generating. And another good example is we've got a company in the US that have digital menuing systems for like cafes and restaurants and bars and things like that. And again, they've got this mechanism for menuing and helping these establishments take money for orders, but they don't have a website, and a website is a real value add that they can give to their customers. But they can use our API to automatically put that menu data and the company logo and the other information they already have about these companies in their database. Yeah, they can automatically put that onto the website using the API. So we're seeing some really interesting applications of that. We're calling it sort of websites as a service.
Yeah, it makes sense. But at the same time, it sounds like it's less generic approach. You need to be much more creative to find such partnerships, right? How do you reach those guys? It's tough. Sales has always been a hard game. I think it is for any company. Yeah, look, I think we're still in the early days of that API-based strategy. We've got our first couple of partners over the line, and the way we look at it is we build upon our successes. So now we've got those first couple of partners, we can put some case studies together, and we can put some videos together and show what they've done, what they've achieved with the API. And then we can use those when we're in our sales processes to say, look, what these other companies have done, you can do something similar. So we're looking at kind of building on that success. In terms of finding companies, it's all about thinking about those use cases. What are the specific SaaS subcategories that we think would benefit from having a website alongside whatever it is that they sell, and then going and targeting those guys directly. How would you compare your solution to similar products like Yola or Duda, who have been also reaching, trying to get some traction through the web hosting companies? We've
always taken a very deliberate position of being a super simple product, unashamedly simple, because we know that the mass market out there are small businesses who don't understand how to design a website. They don't understand about layout and CSS. And so most customers out there want a very, very simple product with zero learning curve in order to achieve what they want to achieve in terms of getting a website online and setting up their business. So we think we differ from some of those other players who have perhaps a richer feature set, but with that richer feature set comes some complexity and comes some inherent knowledge that you need in order to be able to build a website successfully with them. There are tools out there that effectively just give you sort of UI controls over CSS. You've still got to understand about CSS and about fonts and about padding and about shadows and about, all of those little intricate details in order to really achieve anything with it. And if you're a designer or you're a sort of semi-developer, then that's perfect for you. But we deliberately try not to do any of that. We don't offer our customers any of that ability to do that. We want this to be really easy for small businesses to be able to get the results they want in literally minutes.
Okay, and do you keep track of your market share, and do you keep track of your competition in this regard?
We do in some ways. Yeah, it's very difficult from sort of end website perspective. We're still a drop in the ocean in terms of all of the different types of website builders and platforms there are out there. When you look at someone like WordPress, who obviously has a really big chunk, we're nowhere near that, but we are, visible on those numbers. We have, as I say, we've got hundreds of thousands of paying active sites and probably closer to the low millions in terms of free sites flowing through the platform. So in terms of market share, I think when you look at competitors similar level to us, we are very competitive with those guys, but obviously not with some of the bigger guys like Wix.
Okay, so tell us about these extra products that you are offering, because you've said that it's no longer just a site builder. Yeah. So what else do you have to offer?
So we've got the e-commerce platform, which is for selling physical stuff. So someone is actually shipping out products, and that's the e-commerce platform that we have. We built a couple of years ago the bookings module. We realized there was a big gap. We still feel there's a big gap in the market, actually, because a large proportion of small businesses that we talk to don't sell physical products. They actually sell themselves. They sell time, they sell appointments. And a lot of e-commerce products don't cater very well to selling those sorts of things. So we wanted to build a dedicated product for doing that. So the Basekit bookings product will integrate with a calendar so that it can check your schedule, and customers can come to your website, they can pick an appointment time, and then they can pay for that online as well. And I think most interesting of our products, I think, is the CRM, which is something that we built last year. So what this does is it takes any of the data that comes from your website. So whether that's people submitting information via a form, whether that's someone buying something from your e-commerce store, whether that's someone creating a booking, and it pulls all of that data, customers, orders, etc., into CRM. What you can then do is we're just going live actually literally this week and next week at CloudFest. We're going live with our Zapier integration. And if you haven't heard of Zapier before, it allows you to integrate with thousands of other SaaS products out there.
Yeah.
Because having spoken to our customers, we know that they use a bunch of different products. They're not just using any one platform. They're using a bunch of different things, whether that's, even things like email and Slack and calendar, but then also like marketing tools they're using, accounting tools, obviously, for business. So we wanted Basekit to work really nicely with all of those other tools that people use. So we're going live with the Zapier integration. And yeah, that will let you hook up that data with whatever you need to run your business. So, it's much less now about just building a site. We think about this in terms of what does someone want to achieve? What workflows do they want to have in their day-to-day life as they're running the business? What outcomes do they want? It's not just having a site online. It's actually, the outcome is, I want to sell more. and I want to, market more. So we're trying to enable those things to happen.
Okay, so what, in your opinion, is the future of site builders, putting aside AI? Because you are adding more products and more options for your customers, but overall, in terms of site builders. So I know that your solution is not strictly site builder anymore, but in general, looking at the market and at the future of, quickly making a site, what do you think is the future of such solutions?
Oh, that's a tough question with AI off the table. So, look, I think when we speak to our customers, we know that they want to have enough control so that they can get and talk about their business in the way that they want to talk about it. So we want to give people enough control and enough flexibility, but not too much, because our audience don't want to be to have that huge complexity.
Right.
So I think there'll always be a place for building sites. Building sites is about creating content. And so there'll always be a place for that. And what we're looking to do as we move forward, even putting aside AI, is just make the tools as easy as possible for people to do things with. So we're doing more around like image manipulation. So being able to do things, just simple things like removing background from images and, using icons and SVGs and these other things that are more common on websites now. So, for us, it's about not necessarily adding more complexity, but, adding more tools to simplify some of those jobs in a website that can be fiddly to do.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the AI. So tell us more what it opens for site builders and solutions like yours, and how did you apply that to Basekit so far?
So let me give you a bit of context on Basekit's view of AI. So we've obviously done a lot of research on this, both from, trying out commercial and open source generative AI stuff in the dev team, and then also going and testing out other products that have released their AI capabilities. And honestly, we've been a little underwhelmed at the moment with what's out there in terms of there are several companies that have pushed out the type of business that you are and will generate a complete website, and you can, hit publish and, go about your merry way and you have a website. But, in all honesty, when you look at that in the context of a real customer, it just wouldn't work, because what we find when we talk to customers is they want to have an authentic voice. They want some authenticity to come through their website. So, they might be sort of just a plumber or just a florist, but they have something about them that makes them authentic, in their area, or makes them authentic in terms of the service they offer or the sort of mission that they're on as a company. I think AI is sadly kind of removing some of that authenticity when you try and cut too many corners and generate too much for a customer. So obviously generative AI is going to play a part in our future. We're rolling out some features right now, actually, around that. But we don't feel that just automatically generating stuff for a customer is good for anything more than just sort of a demo. So what we're actually doing with some AI tools is we're building some internal tools with AI that's helping us to generate and curate some really great, fantastic looking themes and content that then can be picked up by our customers. So rather than sort of cross your fingers and hope someone can come in and generate AI off the fly, we're actually using AI to curate stuff at a much larger scale than we've ever been able to do internally, so that when someone comes to use our product, they've got a really wide variety of different, really great looking themes, great looking images that they can use straight away. And then as well as that, we're looking at how AI can be applied to specific parts of our tooling. So I already mentioned things like the image manipulation, there's things we can do around that. Yeah, I think there's a lot that AI still needs to kind of catch up to before you can hit a button and there'll just be a website for you waiting.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. I don't feel like even just, trying to generate just a content through ChatGPT it's hard to get what you really want to show to people. And It's too
Yeah.
generic, and
Yeah.
you can say that someone has been using an AI generated content. It's just not giving enough. So hopefully these tools will be improved.
Yeah. I think it's really obvious, isn't it? When, particularly on LinkedIn, you see it. When someone's generated a LinkedIn post, it's really obvious they've done that. And at first it was like, hey, they're smart, they're using ChatGPT, but now it's everywhere. I almost get that feeling of like, that's a bit lazy that they've done that, and it's not,
exactly,
like I say, not very authentic. That it's not their real them expressing themselves as they would if they'd had to write it themselves.
Yeah, and you told it just a LinkedIn post, but the same goes for an entire website or a blog. It feels just not real. So do you have any solution for that? Any ideas how to solve it? Do you have any plans to improve that, or you just apply simple tools for now and wait for some new breakthroughs happening?
Yeah, for us at the moment, we're focused on making the tools as simple as possible. You know, we think at the moment at least, there's no shortcut to someone having to put their stamp on a website, which, you know, means if you're a local business, you've got to upload some photos because you're going to want to show your premises, your cafe, whatever it is as a business, right? You can't just generate something of a random place and hope that's going to be okay. You want to show where you work and where your business is. So we think people need to upload images and use them. And we think they need to write some content. And of course, AI can be used to help with that, maybe to expand on it a little bit. And AI can be used to help to manipulate the images in whatever way we need to, upscaling, background removal and things like that. But we don't want to take the shortcut around someone actually putting some of their voice into the website.
Right. So other than AI, what are your further plans for the development of your platform?
So we have lots of work to do on the API that I mentioned earlier. So that's going to be really big for us. So as well as working with the SaaS companies that we talked about, which will be largely driven by our sales team going out, speaking to SaaS companies. We also want to open up the API to anybody that wants to use it, right? So if I'm a developer and I want to generate a website, then you'll be able to sign up somewhere, hopefully in sort of end of year time. You'll be able to sign up somewhere, get some API keys, and go right ahead and generate some websites programmatically. And that comes, or potentially can come with domain names, with SSL, with content. And, as we add AI tools, you'll be able to access those with the API as well. And so we're seeing that as potentially a big move for us going forwards because, ultimately people do this stuff. People dynamically generate websites all the time in different ways, but we've never seen a commercially available, just websites via an API, websites as a service. So we think it could be a quite interesting move for us.
And how about business-wise? Do you have any ideas how to get some more traction? You've said that the web hosting market is getting more and more difficult to expand on. And you said that you are hitting more SaaS solutions, or you've said that you'll be trying to provide it to some programmers. Is this your only idea, or do you have any other shots? So we have a couple of shots, as always. We're still very active in telco. There's still lots of deals coming our way in telco. Yeah, I mentioned earlier about the sort of places a little bit further from home. So, for example, we went live recently with Ethio Telecom in Ethiopia. We went live with Sri Lanka Telecom in Sri Lanka. So lots of deals still to be done, I think, in the telco space. It sounds like it's in emerging markets, right?
Yes, exactly. Like I say, less competition there for others. It is slightly harder to do business there, potentially, but yeah, I think there's some real opportunities there. So that's telco. Then we've also got banking and finance, which is a really new one for us. We've got some really big logos, really big brands who we're talking to at the moment.
And how does that connect to a bank?
So what we're seeing with lots of the new style banks is that they offer now web-based tools alongside the bank account. So quite often, as well as just your bank account tools, being able to make payments, etc., they're also offering things like the instant invoicing, where you can send like an invoice link out to someone to pay you online as a small business.
Yeah.
So we think it's not much more of a step to say, not just an invoice system. Why don't you also enable your small businesses to get online and to take bookings and to sell products? We've got lots of interest now from kind of banks, payment providers and the like, who are starting to make that connection now.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because they have a very direct connection with the small businesses.
Exactly.
And if there's a simple way for these businesses to create a website, why not through the bank?
Again, it's not, don't think about just the website. You've got to think about it in terms of the transactions, right? So banks want people to make transactions. So if they can enable their small business customers to go and sell stuff within days and actually start putting money into the bank account, then they're winning. So yeah, that's the theory there. And we've got some interesting conversations. We're yet to go live with a kind of big bank yet. But we've got some moving along, shall we say.
Okay, that's an interesting direction. I would never expect that when you're making a system for website that it's going to get through a bank. So let's get back to the hosting market, as this is a web hosting related podcast. So you've said that it's getting more and more difficult because of consolidation. There are just not many new players and all the bigger guys already have their own solutions. What do you think will happen? What do you think about the hosting market and what would you expect to happen in the next couple of years?
So I think, consolidation is ongoing. I think there are still parts of the world where consolidation in hosting is much further behind. It's probably the emerging markets that we've already talked about from our perspective, where we're having some more luck with our sales efforts. So I think some areas consolidation is in its earlier stages, and we're going to see some bigger groups and bigger players perhaps emerge in those other markets outside of the US and Europe, I guess. So, potentially in Africa, in Asia, places like that, where those sort of big, huge hosting groups tend to exist less. There are less of them. I can see that happening. With that's going to bring, the usual challenges of consolidation and what happens in terms of, wrapping those companies up into one. As far as the industry as a whole, we still see it from a customer perspective. In sort of there are two veins to the hosting industry. There's the kind of hardcore tech hosting, which is moving more towards cloud infrastructure. Away from the sort of virtual servers of old. Everything's moving to kind of virtualized and public cloud direction, I would say. And then you've got the more small business focused hosting, which is then about outcomes and solutions. So this is where we come in with, e-commerce and bookings. And, I can see that there are more solutions like that could fit into hosting for the right brands. There are more small business solutions and SaaS solutions that hosting companies could get on board with and sell. Bookings is our example, because there were very few hosting companies that sold anything to do bookings a couple of years ago. And now we've got most of our partners on board with that. But I'm sure there are other things that they could sell as well that would make sense.
What would you advise to other companies who want to offer their software through the web hosting companies in a similar model like yours?
So the big thing for us is that we are way more than just a software company. So we've got a big team of people that are helping not just to sell and market, which is one part of the equation, but then once we do sign a new partner, we have project managers that help to launch a partner. We've got a partner marketing team that help with the go-to-market planning for the partner to make sure that they successfully launch and have all of the right assets and the right positioning. And then we've got technical support. We've got sales training and support training that we do with our partners. We've got account management then, where we look at the statistics that they've got and the metrics for how their customers are using the product, and have monthly calls with them to make sure that they're doing all the right thing in terms of messaging and supporting their customers and selling it in the right way and pricing it in the right way. And you can see this is a long list of things that we do to really help our partners be successful. So I think to take steps into the market and be a sort of B2B channel type business, you have to have all of that wraparound service. Otherwise, what you're going to find is you you'll find some partners who will take your product, but they just won't know what to do with it, or they won't be very successful with it, and you'll, waste a lot of time.
Okay. By the way, it sounds like you have a pretty solid structure out there to get new partners on board and make sure that they are succeeding. So I guess this is something that you were building for all these years as well, not just a product, but an actual service for your partners, right?
Exactly. And it's often, the stuff underneath the hood, if you like, because people are very focused on our product. What does the product do? And well, actually, it's just as valuable, all of the other stuff that we provide to our partners to help them be successful.
Simon, thank you for the interview. It's been very insightful. Great to know that your business is doing well and expanding in new areas. And I hope that it will continue to grow further and, it will be 20, 25 years or more in the business that it succeeds.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great to talk.